Welcome to a new episode of our podcast, Lead the Future, Change the Conversation. An unedited, honest conversation to create the future. My name is Arjan Visser, Futurist and your host, and join me as I chat with my friend Darin Martin on leadership, future, peers. Darin is a serial entrepreneur, always looking for the new opportunities. His heart is to see leaders live the fullest life possible, starting with alignment of business, life, starting with alignment of family life and business life. So Darin, thank you for joining in the podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks for trusting me with a few minutes of your life to be a part of it.
Yeah, well, like I said in our post briefing, it is this honest conversation, which means I try to find a question that touches our vulnerability as a leader, and by that actually share our story and inspire our listeners, which I really encourage to connect and speak up themselves as well. So, introducing you as a serial entrepreneur, and we had a short laugh about that. Because it could be such a cheesy thing. But I got to know you as someone who is really a serial entrepreneur, always looking for new opportunities. But I was just wondering, what tension do you have spotting new opportunities, maybe even tomorrow's opportunities, and at the same time being involved in so many operational day-to-day things in your business?
Lots of tension, but manageable, right? So in terms of spotting opportunities, in the tension with not forsaking all of my existing responsibilities for management and operation of what I'm currently doing. So I am very committed to this idea of irreducible minimums, where for me, I spend a tremendous amount of time trying to simplify things as much as possible. It's considered Einstein's razor: make things as simple as possible, but no simpler. And that really speaks to me because life is very complicated. It can be. And there are a lot of people who like to capitalize on complexity, where for me, I just want to eliminate it. So managing that tension, I spend a significant amount of time in contemplation. A lot of people, especially leaders, and the doers and the producers, the people who have that thing that's like, go, 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 I got to do, which I have. I mean, that is in me, all the way going back to, when I joined the U.S. Marine Corps, right? Crazy people join the Marine Corps. Why? Because we have this thing in us that's like, go, go, go. It was learning that not all activity is profitable. Sometimes activity is just activity. And it makes us feel good, like we're doing something, but it's not really helping us. And so I have cultivated a discipline of contemplation. And I actually recently, there's a book by an author named Richard Rohr, where he talks about this idea of contemplation. And I love the way he phrased it. He said, contemplation is the way you stare at reality. And I thought, man, that's really, if you look at the Latin, right, the origin of the word contemplation, it's observe, it's staring, it's seeing. And he goes to talk a little bit more about we have to really be mindful, not just to be aware of what is, but the way in which we are aware of what is, because oftentimes people don't have an honest assessment. And I'm looping this back around. I'm not rabbit trailing here. But a lot of times people don't have an honest assessment of reality. And not only what is, but then going to what you do in the conversations you and I have had in the past. But where are you going? What is that future reality that you are working towards?
Yeah.
And so if we don't stop and consistently monitor, where am I? Like, so what is, and where do I desire to be? What is that future me? What is that future reality that I'm working towards? If we don't monitor that consistently as a discipline, then we don't get there. So for me, to answer the question of managing tension, is I manage that tension during my times of contemplation when I see, because I see opportunity all the time, every day. And there's part of me that as soon as I see it, I'm like, okay, this is what I would do with that. I would take that, I would buy this, and I'd hire this person. We could do this. And I'm already 5-10 years in the future thinking about what it could be. But you know what? It violates another law for me, or a rule for me, called the law of non-contradiction, right? If in my contemplation, I know where I am and I know where I want to be, but this opportunity, as good as it is, and as good as I believe I could do with it, if it's not in service of getting me from here to there, then it's a contradiction of what I've stated about who I am and who I want to be and where I want to be. So that is how I cultivate a consistent discipline of contemplation, making sure that where I am and what I'm doing doesn't contradict with where I'm going.
Yeah, that's a good answer. And I was just thinking, listening to you, like making things simple, but not too simple.
Right.
I love that phrase, because there are also a lot of people that have a drive to simplify, and then you could lose it. Make it simpler, but not simplify it. And
Right.
And also on the other end of the, if it was a linear spectrum, you could say that the beyond complexity, the chaotic, is at one end, call it the future end, and simple is maybe today at the operational end. So I was wondering, like listening to your answer, as a futurist, I understand how you make your choices on the short term, because there is a sense of new understanding, new knowledge, where I want to go. But when I have longer term goals or longer term vision, which actually is only where to, not even what will it contain, and definitely not how do I prepare myself for it with action, you get another tension. You don't know how to compare, you don't know where the contradiction is, but you sense some things contribute and others don't. So how do you deal with the longer term when actually it is, let's call it chaotic? I've been for years a chaos strategist, because I always say in chaos the new things are born, but then you bring it back to today to order it and actually make it simple in your language, to let it go and go back into the future and create the new, which is chaotic, complex, and bring it back and simple. So how do you deal with that routine, with all the opportunities?
I will say that out of all of the things that I do or don't do, like that's probably one of the things that I don't do as well. That idea, I mean, because really it wasn't until I first talked with you that I was even aware, uh, I guess not aware, but just aware of how important it is to view beyond, right, that future goal. Because I think even in our first conversation, because to me, I reduced it to the question of, well, then what? Let's say you get there, right? And you said, because then you get there, and now you've hit that horizon, and but now you have a new tension. Now there's a new layer, there's a new horizon that you're trying to get to. I've not done a great job of that in my life. I'm 49, so I still have plenty of time to get better at that. And
I know that feeling.
But I'll tell you this: how I have generally managed that. In the Marine Corps, we have a phrase. We call it Semper Gumby. Now, Gumby is an old cartoon character made of rubber, and he's super flexible and super stretchy, and so we would, anytime a situation went chaotically, because in the military and military exercise and war, that is like the birthplace of chaos. I mean, it's chaos everywhere. We cultivate and learn a mindset of flexibility. Our official phrase is improvise, adapt, and overcome. And so what I have done, instead of really being mindful and driven on that deeper, longer horizon, I've kind of defaulted to this mindset of, when I get there, I'll improvise, adapt, and overcome. I'll figure it out. Which is a way, right? That's a way. It's probably not, it's definitely a good way in the immediate term of chaos and crisis. It's probably not the best way in terms of actually establishing those deeper, longer goals that help raise you to your highest, potential of yourself and what you can contribute to others.
Yeah, to find that fuller version, or even your fullest version of who your identity, who you're called to be.
Right.
And we talked a bit beforehand about the very old quote from Seneca, the Roman philosopher, who makes this statement, paraphrase, like, luck is preparation meeting opportunity. And when I think of luck in that perspective, I see this like this classic picture of an iceberg. Luck is how it looks like, because that's what you see below or above the surface, but the preparation is all below, and that's the big part. And then, as a futurist, I think, but how do I prepare for tomorrow's opportunity? Because that's not based on my current activities. That's not even based on my current experience or understanding. Actually,
Right.
it's leaning into my fuller identity, expecting to learn new skills or new applications of my current skill set. And so it's not about mastery of skills, but it's all about leaning into a part of me that maybe I sense, but have not seen or heard or done anything with. So does that resonate with you, that stretch of that philosopher's statement?
Absolutely. So for a long time, I really stressed over the idea that I'm not a specialist, right? A lot of people in this world, they're specialists. They get into an industry, they learn a thing, and they go really, really deep into this one thing, and they're a specialist. Only recently, a couple of years ago, that I really come across an actual vast group of people that are saying, yeah, well, we're generalists. We're not specialists. We function best when we function broadly, because we see life, we see world in a different way. And so from that foundation, I am, maybe a serial entrepreneur, but I am definitely a serial learner.
Yeah.
I take college classes, online. I'll audit classes out of interest for fun, because I'm fascinated by the idea. I mean, I've done everything from law to contracts, to mediation, marketing, business management, project management, process and manufacturing, efficiency management, like psychology. I've really hit a wide spectrum. And to your point, when an opportunity comes up, or when tomorrow's opportunity that I was not even in my paradigm, was not even in my view, right? It comes up. I find that for me, by having a wide breadth of foundational knowledge and understanding of how so many things work together, that when that unknown, unforeseeable opportunity pops up, I can immediately engage various aspects of my mental library and go, I recognize this. I know this. I actually know the verbiage and the lingo that they're using, because 3 years ago I studied this thing, or I read this book, and I get it. So 100%.
Yeah.
I think there's very, very little actual luck in this world. I think the vast majority of what people attribute to luck is what Seneca said, as we discussed. It's just people who have prepared. And because, there's this other idea that nothing happens until something moves, right? When a person moves in a certain direction, and we've talked about this idea of plants. So I'll give you an example. I just recently got my motorcycle license. Now, I love riding a motorcycle. This is the first time in my life I've ever done it, but I've always wanted to do it. I started in the direction. Okay, so I took a 2 full day motorcycle safety course. I took the written course. I got my motorcycle endorsement on my license, and of course, now I start talking about this with people. Well, a friend of mine who had a motorcycle, I had no idea he even had a motorcycle. Pristine condition, garage kept, only had less than 6,000 miles on it. He says, hey, you want to buy my motorcycle? I'm going to give you a really good deal on it. And so I got this pristine motorcycle at about half the value, because I started to learn something, which nothing happens until something moves. So I started moving in a direction, and this idea of providence, some people may call it luck. Oh, you got lucky. Well, no, I started moving in a direction, and it's amazing to watch how things in life start to line up and start to be attracted by that movement that you've created towards this thing. So yeah, I think it's all about.
That is a great accessible example about how the preparation brings alignment ahead of us. As a futurist, we always say we don't go to the future, but the future comes to us. But you are preparing, like on the highway, you choose the right lane for what is beyond the horizon. So I love the example, taking the lessons, and in general, like find a tutor, find a coach. So get the coach in your life to learn something new, or to become better in what is connected to who you are. So we talked about this example, and I think we should not redo it, because I think this is a really powerful example about finding a coach. And even when you don't have clarity about your future perspective yet, well, you didn't have clarity because it was not on a printed paper, but you, in a way, you had perspective doing the lessons, and actually now the motorbike is there. So the road is yours. But if there was perspective, and we tend to forget that the perspective is not like the painting or a vision board. Vision boards are so many times made based on what we understand. and then we actually are creating an image of our. You started with it, like our current understanding, perception of reality, and not the future. So leaning in, preparing for it. I love that example.
Yeah. And to your point that you were just making about finding a coach, like I've always been annoyingly so, and probably to my detriment at times. I've just always been such an independent, I can do it, I don't need help kind of a person. Um, and man, that's just a very limited way to live life. It doesn't matter how smart you are, it doesn't matter how much you know, you can never you can never gain you can never create somebody else's perspective or viewpoint or experience within your own self. Being able to access that other person's lifelong learning, their experiences, their perspectives, their understandings of things, it's just so important. And so, yes, find a coach, but be coachable,
Oh yeah,
be a learner, be don't care how smart you are, don't care how much you know, guaranteed somebody out there knows more or knows something different. I'm a huge idea on challenging, because here's my personal take on the outcome of challenge. You tell me something and I challenge it. You're either going to come to the realization that what you thought was incorrect and that there's an actually more true or a different perspective, right? Or I'm going to challenge you and you're going to defend it, and you're going to become even better entrenched and have a better understanding of your position because you've been challenged. So here you're better off because you have a better perspective. Here you're better off because you have a more firm belief and foundation in your perspective. Or three, I'm going to challenge something, and part of what they say is true, part of what they don't say, what they think, isn't quite right. And so their perspective is enlarged. It's bigger now, and they have a bigger, better understanding than what they just have. So for me, I challenge stuff to my friends ire all the time because I think there is such benefit to be challenged. However, you have to be willing to be challenged.
yeah.
You have to be coachable. You have to be learnable. You have to be willing to learn. Hey, new word, learnable. You got to be learnable.
Well, you need to be open and give other
Yes.
people permission to get to know you. So in that
Yeah.
way,
Yeah. And all of that answers your question is of, when you're talking about managing the tensions, like all of this together, in the last, whatever, 20 minutes that we've been talking, I mean, this is stuff that I've cultivated over a lifetime,
Yeah.
right? It's years of doing it the wrong way and stumbling onto a way that works for me, that leads me into that right direction. And it's having relationships, and it's meeting people like you who come in and instantly present this new way of viewing things, to the extent, I think I even may have told you at the first time we talked, I said, I understand what you're saying, but I don't get it.
No.
because my mind couldn't wrap itself around this new paradigm. But over the course of conversations, I began to see it. I began to understand it, and then my whole perspective grew, and and I benefited as a result.
Yeah. Well, it's like you say, like being challenged, and the word that I pick out of it, it forces you into a dialogue. We can have an inner dialogue, but most of the times we don't have an inner dialogue either. We as leaders, entrepreneurs, we tend to be lonely in our organization,
Oh,
and we tend to ignore it, that we are lonely, and not acknowledge it. But we are lonely because we have a bigger perspective that we cannot confuse the people around us with, because we are looking still for language and clarity. And that's why to be challenged and become an external processor, like a verbal processor. Like there's so many people say, I'm not like that. Well, you are, because seeing is believing, but faith comes by hearing. So the understanding of what you actually have found out as a new thing in your perspective comes through your ears. So, like my teenage son always says, it sounded better in my head. That's why you need to speak it out, because you start to review new steps, actions, maybe even doing for that future perspective. So thanks for sharing. Just to wrap it up, I really invite anyone listening, like, get connected. Get connected to me, use the link below, or get connected to Darin through LinkedIn. His name is tagged in it as well. Just reach out, because coaching is not for those who are on the wrong end of the learning spectrum. No, coaching is actually for everyone to be not at the wrong end and be challenged and keep growing, keep learning. And recently, a friend of mine said, you owe it to yourself to find out the fullest version of yourself. Like, not investing in yourself is not, it's not, how did he say that? It's not selfish to invest in yourself. Actually, it's the opposite. It's really selfish not to invest in yourself, because the people around you need the fullest version of who you are and who you can become. So just no pressure, but I invite everyone to just reach out and find out what coaching or peers can do for you in this journey. You don't have to be alone. So Darin, thank you for your time. Thank you for your great examples. Made them real tangible. So looking forward to invite you another time in a future podcast.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate being here and just being able to verbalize it, vocalize it, and hopefully somebody out there caught a little nugget of something that's going to make their life better. And I'd love to come back and explore more with you.
Promise. Let's do that. Well, take care. Bye.
Bye.